Hi everyone. Today let's talk about the UK blocking Microsoft's acquisition of Blizzard. Then we'll go over the charts. Then we'll finish up with a couple potential trades. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So the UK says they're going to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. As a result, Activision is down 10%, which makes sense, and Microsoft is down a little bit, but they had a huge rally on earnings, which we talked about in yesterday's video. And basically, regulators said that it's going to make Microsoft too big of a tech giant, and they're going to have too much of a stranglehold on technology, and specifically video games in this case. And they say it here with competition concerns specifically to the cloud gaming market, which is interesting. They say cloud gaming technology allows players to play remotely pretty much from anywhere, just like you would stream from Netflix. And while this technology is still new, Microsoft is betting big on this technology. And then they highlight the fact that Microsoft would benefit from making Activision's games exclusive to its own cloud gaming service. And I just don't think this is true. So Microsoft has come out multiple times and said they want to make games more available to any player on any platform. And also, this doesn't make sense from a financial perspective. Microsoft, even if they acquire Activision, is going to want to sell Activision's games to the widest population. And Sony still has a huge population on PlayStation, much bigger than Microsoft, actually. So if they took away Activision's games from the Sony platform, they're going to lose a huge amount of market share in terms of who they can sell these video games to. So it does seem very strange in terms of an argument. I just don't believe that Microsoft would do that, and it doesn't make financial sense. But that is the argument that they're claiming here. They mentioned that Microsoft was expected to buy Activision Blizzard here for $69 billion. This was obviously at a market premium, which has caused Activision to go up. And you can see Sony was the biggest voice of concern here against this acquisition, which makes sense. Obviously, they're going to be impacted the most. Sony has a pretty big stranglehold on video games, more so than I would have thought when I started doing research on this topic. I believe it's around 70% of the video game market is on PlayStation when it comes to console, so they are definitely the dominant power, which again is an indicator why this doesn't really make that much sense to me. They own the vast majority of the marketplace, and this seems more like a pretty decent competition from Microsoft to fight against Sony in that marketplace, but somehow this is anti-competitive on Microsoft's part. And they actually mentioned what I was talking about in terms of allowing Activision games to be available on Sony and Nintendo for the next 10 years, specifically with Call of Duty. So they offered an agreement for 10 years to continue to provide these video games on their platforms. And like I said, it doesn't make financial sense to remove them from Sony. They have a huge base, and a lot of players for these games are on the PlayStation, and that would be a huge revenue loss for Activision and then subsequently Microsoft. And then they actually mention here in terms of the cloud gaming concerns, cloud gaming right now makes up less than 1% of global internet traffic in 2022, which definitely to me says that cloud gaming is not really that big of an issue right now. And maybe it's something that we could address later, but to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to block this transaction, at least right now. So moving over to the charts here, you can see Microsoft had a huge pop after hours from earnings. You can see they were down at 275.52. They're all the way up at 297. Not a lot to say here. This is probably going to get a continuation. They put out good guidance. And really, this price range is going to be decent for Microsoft. They continue to do extremely well. Otherwise, looking at Activision here, you can see they were up at $87. Jumping over to the 12-hour chart where you can see this big red bar that came on the announcement. We're down at $78 now. We're back in this range of consolidation. We actually threw a wick all the way down to $76. Really, this is not a terrible price now for Activision. We were in this zone before. And after going in and doing a couple of price targets here, you can see we're right at that first price target, $76.59. This is basically the center of this consolidation here recently. So that's a decent entry level, at least for a beginner type position. Really that our entry would be these previous lows. We've had multiple touches at this area. Seems like a much higher level of support. And this is obviously going to be a falling knife here in the short term. So it would make sense that this come down to around that 71, 72 level. If we come in here, find a little bit of support and consolidate in this range, that might be a decent trade. But zooming out here, you can see this low going back to December of 21. That's down around $57. I don't necessarily think that we're going to fall that far. You also have a decent level here at 64.26. This was that initial higher low setup before we had the big rally. So a lot of room between these levels. That's really what I would be watching. Like I said, maybe a beginner position, maybe a short-term bounce from this level, but 71.72 seems like that initial position. And overall, I would be patient here on Activision. Moving over to possible trades here, you can see Microsoft trading up around 296.50. This is the option chain from yesterday, and it's before the market closed, so that's not factoring in the earnings move yet. But you can see they actually had a pretty big range here, so they were expected to potentially move up $20 or down $20 on this earnings announcement. That is what we ended up getting to the upside, so we're right at that upper limit of the expected move on earnings. I would expect this to drift down just based on that potential move, but if you can get in pretty early and potentially get that same expected move from this 295 level, then you should be able to sell a 275 put for around that 50 to 60 cents, which honestly to me seems like a pretty decent trade. You'd be getting in at Microsoft for about $20 less. We already have their earnings. They might fall on the Activision news, but their earnings were very good regardless of Activision. So again, Microsoft still bullish on them. And I do think options are the best way to trade this, as it would allow you to get that much better entry as long as you can get about a $20 lower price. If you want to go a little bit lower though for a bigger credit, you can see that big expected move on next week's options, but you can get all the way down to about 245. Even if you roll this up $20 based on the big move on earnings, you'd be around 265 again for that 50 to 60 cents for about a week and a half from now. So decent options trades in here on Microsoft, but do be aware of that potential IV contraction after earnings. Moving over to Activision, you can see they have earnings here on the 27th after hours, so you do have to be aware of that if you do want to trade them. But in terms of options pricing here, you can see huge expected move because this is the after earnings options pricing, but you can see about a $10 expected move. And now with the $10 cheaper price here, you should be able to get in around $67 for that 20 cents to $1. Look how wide this pricing is here, not a ton of volume on Activision options. This might increase in volume as we get closer to earnings, so do keep that in mind, but be aware of this spread if you're looking to get into this. But even still, if you can get a decent price around 80 cents, that would be a 1% return. And at this point, you'd get a much better entry around $67. So based on what we talked about from those levels, that gives you a pretty good entry into Activision if this is a position that you're looking to get into. If you're concerned about those earnings, you could definitely go a little bit lower. Again, big spreads on these options, looking at about 65 cents to $1 for about a $10 move. If you roll this down based on the move pre-market here, that should get you into this stock around $64 or $65 for about $1 in option premium. Let me know down in the comment section if you agree or disagree with the UK's take on this acquisition. Make sure you check out the Patreon and the Twitter that are linked in the description. And make sure you like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. And hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.